That morning, the fields behind town were so still I could hear the wind sliding through brittle stalks of grass. I, Evelyn Harper, 68 years old, widowed, still walked every morning. It was the only way I knew how to keep breathing inside the house that had stood empty for 7 long years. I thought it would be just another ordinary day. But then, a sound cut across the silence, thin as a thread. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't a bird. It was a cry, weak, trembling, as if life itself was slipping away. I froze, my heart thudding faster. I listened. Then I followed. At the far edge of the field, under a rough mound of gravel and dirt, I saw a hole. No one dug holes out here, but someone, or something, had. I stepped closer, and the moment I looked down, my breath nearly stopped. In that hole lay a Doberman mother, bones sharp beneath torn skin, her body caked with blood and soil, ribs rising in clear lines. She trembled, shielding 5 tiny newborns with what little strength she had left. She had brought them into the world alone, no food, no shelter, nothing but a pit in the ground for a nest. The puppies pressed against her belly, searching for the last drops of milk. Their faint whimpers pierced like knives. I saw 2 breathing fast and shallow, one nearly motionless. I dropped to my knees. But the instant my hand brushed the edge of the pit, the mother lunged, baring her teeth, a guttural snarl tearing from her chest. Her eyes were bloodshot, wild with fury but drowning in despair. She wanted to protect them. She was begging at the same time. That look said 2 things at once. Don't take them, but please, save them. My voice shook as I whispered, I'm not here to take them. I'm here to keep them breathing. I thought I'd have time to calm her, but I was wrong. A sharp whine cut the air. The water pump started up across the field. Within seconds, the irrigation system roared to life, spraying cold streams straight toward the pit. The puppies cried, gasping. The mother jerked, staggering, trying to shield them with her body. I shouted and threw myself down. Water rushed in, mud swallowing the edges. She sank her teeth into my hand, deep enough to tear through my glove, blood spilling. But I didn't pull back. I met her eyes through the pain, gasping, Bite me. But let me save your babies. In that moment, she faltered. She still growled, still trembled, but her gaze lifted from my wound and locked onto mine. A flicker of trust, fragile, fleeting, passed between us. I moved quickly, lifting each pup onto the old tarp I'd brought, my hands shaking as I set them safely above ground. When I lifted the third, she lurched again, snarling. I placed that one right against her chest, showing her I wasn't stealing, I was helping. She stopped. Her eyes filled with tears. Her body sagged, as if her last strength had finally drained away. That's when I saw it. Scraps of rusted wire along the pit's edge. Maybe once used to tie garbage bags. Someone had thrown life away here, like refuse. I swallowed hard, the burn rising in my throat. The sky darkened. Black clouds rolled fast. Wind rose, carrying stinging sand. I knew, if I hesitated even minutes longer, the pit would flood and they'd be gone. I dragged the tarp, lifting the whole fragile bundle out of the hollow. The mother whimpered, then dropped her head onto her pups, her eyes never leaving mine. I pressed my bleeding hand against my chest, whispering through clenched teeth, We're not done yet. Stay with me. And if this moment has touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe. Not for me, for the lives still waiting to be seen. I returned to my small wooden house on the edge of town. The same old roof tiles, the same rocking chair my husband left on the porch. Since the day he passed, the only sounds inside had been the wind and the ticking clock. I had grown used to that silence. But this morning, that silence was broken. by the labored breathing of 5 fragile lives. I spread an old quilt across the kitchen floor. The Doberman mother, I called her Ruth, lay pressed tight around her newborns. Her body was nothing but skin stretched over bone, each breath shallow and ragged. Yet her eyes, oh, those eyes, stayed wide open, sharp with both vigilance and pleading. My hands trembled as I dialed Dr. Karen Willis, the town veterinarian I had known for years. She was in her 50s, strong, steady, a woman who never lost her calm in crisis. But when I said, "Doberman mother, just delivered, dug her own pit, 5 newborns," her voice faltered. "Don't handle them too much, Evelyn. Keep them warm. I'm on my way." 15 minutes later, her faded blue pickup pulled into the yard. Beside her was Linda Patel, a vet tech, small-framed, sharp-eyed, yet full of compassion. They hurried in without a word, all focus on the scene before them. Karen crouched, gently lifting one of the trembling pups from the mother's fur. She looked at me, her voice low. "2 of them are badly hypothermic. And this one, it can barely suckle. Evelyn, if we wait, they won't make it." My chest tightened. I sank down beside Ruth, laying my wrinkled hand on the edge of the quilt. I whispered, "Do you hear me, Ruth? I won't let them die." Linda pulled warming cloths from her bag, wrapping each pup, setting them close to the kitchen stove I had just lit. The mother growled faintly when strange hands touched her babies, but her eyes shifted toward me, as if waiting for permission. I nodded. For the first time, she didn't lunge. Yet the air in the room grew heavy. The scent of blood, damp soil, and faint milk mixed together, pulling me back to the hospital years ago, to the hours I spent waiting for the doctor's final words about my husband. My body trembled, but I gripped my hands tight and told myself, "No, I won't lose more today." Karen's voice cut firm and clear. "We have to move them. This house doesn't have what they need. I'll take them all to the clinic. Evelyn, will you come with us?" It wasn't a question. I lifted Ruth in both arms and laid her on the blanket. Her brown eyes met mine, searching, testing. I bent close and whispered, "Come on, Ruth. We'll fight together." The pickup rattled down the dirt road. I sat in the back, holding Ruth and her pups, listening to the engine hum against their weak cries. Every time the truck jolted, Ruth tightened her body around them, exhaustion draining her to the bone. I pressed my hand to her back, feeling the brittle tremors, and whispered, "I've buried enough love already. Not you. Not today." Outside, the sky sagged gray. First drops of rain tapped against the windshield. I thought of the years I had lived inside merciless silence. And here I was now, surrounded by the sounds of life at its weakest, every breath a battle. From the front seat, Linda turned and handed me a warm water bottle. "Drip a little on her lips." She's bone dry. I opened it and let droplets fall into Ruth's mouth. She shivered, lifted her head slightly, and swallowed. In that simple act, I saw it plain. She was still choosing life, still choosing motherhood, even when nothing was left but bone and will. Karen glanced back at me. "Evelyn, you know, not many could handle this at your age, but I need you steady. If you break, Ruth will lose her trust, and if she loses trust, we lose them all." I tightened my calloused hands, stared straight ahead, and said, "I've lived with loss for 7 years. I will not stand by while another life is buried in front of me." In that moment, I understood. This fight wasn't only to save Ruth and her pups. It was to pull me out of the pit I had dug around myself for all these years. The truck rounded the last bend. The clinic appeared, its windows glowing a soft golden light. I drew a long breath and looked down at Ruth once more. Her eyes, though weary, never blinked away from me. And in them, I heard the words that needed no sound. "Don't leave me. Don't leave us." I nodded, lips trembling. Not a chance. The clinic door swung open, white light spilling across the polished tile floor. Linda and I rushed in, my arms still cradling Ruth and her bundled pups. Karen followed close behind, her voice sharp and commanding. "On the table! Now!" The suction machine roared to life, and metal clattered. I had never seen a room so bright, so cold. Ruth whimpered, her body trembling violently. Her belly was soaked with blood and dried milk, her eyes half closed, yet still searching for me. I pressed my hand against her back and whispered, "I'm here. Don't give up." Karen. And Linda worked swiftly, sliding IV lines into veins, pushing pain relief. A lamp swung low, flooding her frail body in sterile light. Karen shook her head, lips tight. "Severe exhaustion. Mastitis infection. Advanced dehydration." I sat beside her, clutching 4 of the pups against my chest inside a warm cloth. One lay limp, head tilted lifelessly to the side. My heart clenched. I bent low, whispering into its tiny ear. "Breathe, little one. Just breathe." Linda pressed her stethoscope to her chest, her brow furrowed. Almost no cardiac response. The room froze. I could hear every tick of the wall clock. Then suddenly, the light snapped out. Darkness swallowed us. Only the choking cough of a stalled generator, the hiss of wind against the windows. A storm was rolling in. I heard Linda shout, "Backup power! Evelyn, keep them warm, now!" My heart jolted. I pulled the pups tight against me, wrapped my coat around them, their icy skin pressed to my wrinkled chest. I bent down, breathing my old breath across their fragile heads. The groan of gears, Karen cranking the hand generator. Dim light flickered, then died again. Her breath came ragged. "Not enough." Linda, hot water bottles. "Evelyn, if one stops breathing, you start CPR. Do you understand?" I swallowed hard. My head spun. Memories surged. Years ago, sitting by a hospital bed, watching the ventilator fade one beat at a time. But this time, I swore it would not end that way. I clenched my jaw and nodded. "I'll do it." No sooner had the words left my lips than the tiniest one in my arms, still slick with afterbirth, went still. Its belly fluttered once, then stopped. I cried out. "She stopped!" Karen barked. "Evelyn, mouth to snout!" Now. My body shook, but I pressed her tiny form to my lips, breathing short, steady puffs, pressing 2 trembling fingers against the chest no larger than a child's fist. "Stay with me, baby. Stay with me." Ruth heard and thrashed on the table, growling, frantic. Linda steadied her gently, whispering, "They're saving your baby, Mama." "Trust us." I kept going, breath after breath, my heart hammering. 1 second, 2, 5, nothing. My eyes blurred with tears, and then a faint squeal, thin but alive, slipped from her mouth. The room froze in awe. I sobbed aloud, clutching her against me. Karen shouted, "Keep her warm!" "Keep that rhythm." Linda wrapped her quickly in a heated pack, pressing her close. I felt the weak flutter of her belly, shallow but there. The emergency lights blinked back on. Karen wiped the sweat from her forehead, a small smile breaking through. "She's still here." In that instant, Ruth's eyes met mine. No longer fierce, only raw, trembling surrender. She pressed her muzzle into my arm, quivering. My throat burned as I whispered, "You did the hardest part, Mama. I'll take it from here." Rain pounded against the clinic roof, mingling with the low rumble of the backup generator. Outside, the sky was black. Inside, we fought for every fragile breath that still remained. The whole room reeked of antibiotics, blood, and wet fur. I sat on a plastic chair, holding the tiny one we had just pulled back from death's edge. She fit into the palm of my hand, her breath faint but steadier now. I pressed my ear to her chest and heard it, the flutter of a little drum, fragile yet unyielding. But before relief could settle in, Linda shouted from the operating table. "Dr. Karen, look here!" Severe mastitis. There's pus. Karen's brow tightened, her bloodied gloves trembling slightly. She glanced at me, her voice clipped. "If that abscess ruptures, Ruth will go septic. We don't have much time." My heart clenched. I looked at Ruth, her body convulsed in waves, yet her eyes never left the pups swaddled in warm cloth beside me. That was not the gaze of one giving up. That was a mother's gaze, ready to fight until her last drop of blood. I laid the fragile pup back into the nest of blankets, then stepped forward, gripping Ruth's paw. "Listen, girl. I know you're hurting. But don't quit. I'm right here." Suddenly, one of the pups let out a harsh, raspy squeal, its belly heaving unnaturally. Linda checked quickly and shook her head. "Fluid in the lungs." Its choking Karen turned sharply to me. "Evelyn, hold Ruth." "We have to clear it now." I cradled Ruth's head as Karen slid a suction tube into the pup's mouth. Ruth growled, her body rigid with fear. I pressed my face close to her ear, whispering, "It's okay, Mama. They're helping." Trust. At that, Ruth stilled. The growl lingered but softened, her head dropping into my arm as if to say, "I trust you." The suction machine whined, drawing out frothy fluid. The tiny body jerked, then sputtered. Linda cried out, "She's responding!" "She's breathing again." Tears burst down my cheeks onto my trembling hands. I turned to Ruth, smiling through sobs. "See? Your baby's a fighter, just like you." But the battle wasn't over. Outside, the wind howled. Thunder cracked. The overhead lights flickered. Karen's voice cut through the storm. "The outage could last all night. We need to prepare for more blackouts." Her words barely left her mouth when Ruth's body seized. Panic gripped me. I clutched her paw. Karen shouted, "Hypoglycemia! Get glucose in now!" Linda tried to thread the IV, but the vein was so thin the needle slipped, blood spilling across her gloves. My voice broke. "Please, don't let her go." Karen's tone was steady, unshaken. "Hold her firm, Evelyn. You're her anchor. Talk to her. Don't let her drift." I pressed my forehead to Ruth's, my voice trembling. "Stay. I've buried my husband. I know what that loss feels like. Don't make me lose again. Stay." And as if by grace, Ruth exhaled. Harsh, heavy, but steady. Karen let out a long breath, nodding. "She's stable. We still have a chance, but I knew that chance was thinner than a thread. That night, I never left the room. Linda pulled up a folding chair beside me, laying a thin blanket over my shoulders. "You should rest a little. Tomorrow will be long." I shook my head. I've lived in silence too long, but tonight, I choose to stay. I won't leave anyone behind. Ruth lay near the bundle of cloth, eyes closed, but every so often they opened, searching for mine. Each time, I nodded back, promising without words, "We're in this together." Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, the monitor beeped steadily, and sure, I looked at the 5 tiny lives, fragile but still here. And in my heart, a small flame flickered to life, the same flame I thought I had buried the day Mr. Harper was taken from me. That night stretched on like a century. Rain hammered the clinic's tin roof, the monitor's beeps looping into a heavy, mournful rhythm. I sat there, arms wrapped around Ruth, my eyes fixed on the pile of blankets where 5 tiny lives fought for each breath. Sometime near 3 in the morning, a different sound cut through. Not rain, not machines. A small, weak whimper, then silence. I rushed over. The smallest one, little June, the one we had just pulled back from death, lay still again. Her belly no longer rose. "Karen!" I shouted, my voice raw. Karen was at my side in a flash, her hands moving like lightning. She pressed its chest, breathed air in. Linda readied a small tube. I stood there, my heart breaking with every beat. The room spun. A vision of my husband's hospital bed flickered across my mind. I could hear my own pulse roaring in my ears, but the monitor stayed silent. Shaking, I screamed into the void. "Don't take her away!" Not again. Karen's eyes met mine, full of compassion, yet edged with the harshness of truth. "Evelyn, I'm sorry." "We've tried," I collapsed. The room dimmed. Tiny June, no bigger than a fist, lay still in the white cloth. Linda quietly laid a small covering over her. Then Ruth's sound tore through me. A low, guttural moan, part growl, part cry. She struggled off the table, straining toward her baby. I let go of the blanket and caught her. Ruth pressed her muzzle against the little covered body, inhaling in shaky pulls. She moaned long and low, then lowered her head beside it, refusing to move. I laid my hand on her back, my tears soaking my fingers. "I know, Mama. I know." The room fell silent. No one spoke. Linda bowed her head. Karen peeled off her gloves, set a hand on my shoulder, and whispered, "Sometimes, even mothers can't stop death." Her words cut straight through me. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to ask why innocence had to suffer, but I couldn't. I only sat there, clutching Ruth, feeling her body tremble in waves. By dawn, only 4 remained. 2 were breathing fast and weak. One shook violently with cold. Another still had fluid in its throat. Looking at them, a new fear took hold. If I'd just lost one, how many more might I lose before this ends? My body was breaking down. I hadn't slept a moment all night. My hands trembled, crusted with dried blood. Linda handed me a cup of coffee, her voice soft. "You need to drink something. You'll collapse." I shook my head. "If I close my eyes, who's going to watch them breathe?" Karen turned back, her voice low but firm. "Evelyn, remember, she pointed at Ruth, needs you steady. You're the thread holding her trust. If you collapse, Ruth will too." I looked over at Ruth. She still lay there, head pressed against the white cloth covering little June. Her deep brown eyes met mine. No growl, no snarl, only a sorrow beyond words. In her gaze, I saw myself, the woman who had sat beside a hospital bed, holding a hand as it went cold, helpless. I knelt down beside her, whispering, "I lost my husband. I lost my child. I know that pain. But please, don't let us lose more." Ruth closed her eyes, exhaling slowly, as if answering. Outside, the first dim light of dawn seeped through the window. But to me it carried no promise, only the cruel truth. I had lost one, and the risk of losing more still loomed. I know the viewers watching might crave an early ending, a miracle on cue, but the truth is never that easy. The fight for life often comes with losses that tear the heart apart. Morning light streamed through the rain-streaked window. I sat there, spent, my back aching, my eyes burning. In the nest of blankets, 4 fragile lives still curled tight, their breaths heavy and uneven. Ruth lay beside them, her eyes half closed, body twitching now and then with waves of pain. I reached out and touched the cloth that covered little June, my voice breaking. "I'm sorry, little one." I tried, and then I heard it. A sound. Weak, raspy, but real. My head shot up. The second pup, the smallest, still alive, moved its tiny legs. Just a twitch. But the first movement in hours. I held my breath. Linda rushed over, her heartbeat pounding, her eyes lit with sudden hope. "It moved. Evelyn, it moved." I stumbled forward, my hands trembling. I pressed my fingers to its belly, frail but warm. I leaned in close and heard it, the faintest heartbeat. I cried out, "Karen!" Still alive. Karen came quickly, fitting a tiny oxygen tube, checking the rhythm. Then, for the first time in hours, she looked up with a smile instead of a frown. "It's faint, but it's there. Keep stimulating. Don't stop." I pressed the pup to my chest, rubbing gently, my shaky breath puffing into its tiny muzzle. Ruth struggled to rise. Her body was broken, but her eyes blazed. She gave a low growl, not of anger, but of urging. Tears spilled down my face as I whispered, "We're doing this together, Mama. Don't give up on me now." And then, the miracle. A high-pitched squeal burst from the pup's throat. The monitor blinked to life, its rhythm signaling oxygen climbing. Linda gasped. "Yes! Yes!" I broke down, sobbing, clutching the tiny body against me. Karen laid a steady hand on my shoulder. "Name her, Evelyn." "She deserves a name," I turned to Ruth. Her deep brown eyes locked onto mine, as if giving me permission. I whispered, "Her name is June. Because June brings rain and life." At that moment, Ruth lowered her muzzle onto my hand, her first touch without a growl. She sighed, her whole weight sinking into me. A small act, but it was surrender. Pure, unconditional trust. I wept, holding both Ruth and little June, repeating over and over, "You did the hardest part, Mama. I'll do the next. I'll do it." The room fell silent. Only the rain outside, the steady hum of the monitor, and the fragile sound of breathing that meant life. In the days that followed, I practically lived at the clinic. I slept on a folding chair, never letting go of Ruth. Linda brought me coffee, and Karen scolded me for not resting. But I knew, if I walked away, Ruth's eyes would go hollow again. Every night, I warmed the pups in my arms. When they cried from hunger, I fed them formula through tiny tubes, my old hands shaking but steady enough. When Ruth winced from her infected mammary glands, I applied warm compresses and cleaned the pus. Each time she whimpered, but her eyes no longer held suspicion, only acceptance. On the fourth day, I witnessed a moment I will never forget. The rain outside had just ended. The first sunlight after the storm streamed through the window, falling onto the nest of blankets. And there, little June, after so many times we thought she was gone, crawled on her own toward her mother's belly. She found one working teat, latched on, and began to nurse. I froze. Then I broke down in tears. I covered my mouth so I wouldn't startle her. Linda sniffled quietly, and Karen turned away, her shoulders shaking. Ruth lifted her gaze to me. For the first time since I had found her in that pit of earth, her eyes carried something beyond pain. They held something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. I whispered, choking back a sob. We did it. We really did it. The room seemed to fill with light, and I knew this wasn't just a mother-dog's fight for her fragile pups. This was also the fight of an old woman who once believed her part in life was over, finding meaning again in every tiny breath. A month later, my small wooden house was no longer the hollow place it had been. On the kitchen floor, the nest of blankets held Ruth and 3 healthy, round-bellied pups scampering around my feet. 2 others, June and Scout, had been taken in by my friend Marjorie, 72, a widow herself. I knew their presence would warm her home the same way they had warmed mine. The day we let them go, I cried. But they were tears of joy. I kissed each small forehead, whispering, "Go on, little one. Find your new sky." Ruth watched, her deep eyes never leaving mine. No growls, no suspicion. Only peace. She knew I hadn't stolen her babies. I had given them a life she had fought to preserve. That evening, Ruth and I sat on the porch, the late sun pouring gold over the trees. She lay her head on my lap and sighed. I stroked her long ears and whispered, "You saved me too, Mama. I thought I was finished, but you showed me I'm not." Ruth didn't answer. She only sniffed softly and drifted into sleep against me. Weeks later, I took her back to the field where it had all begun. The weeds had grown tall, and the pit was gone without a trace. Ruth walked a few steps, paused, then turned her head toward me. That look lasted so long. Time itself seemed to stop. "Look back." My heart tightened. I nodded, smiling through tears. And then the 2 of us stepped forward together. That night, I poured 2 cups of tea. One for me, one for the empty chair on the porch, my husband's chair. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "We're not alone anymore." Inside, the pups yipped and tumbled, Ruth's low bark answering them. The house that had once been silent now rang with the sounds of life. If you are still here, listening until this final moment, let me whisper a thank you. Thank you for keeping your heart with me, with Ruth, with the little ones who crossed the edge of life and death in our arms. Maybe you've cried, as I have cried, but perhaps those tears are not only for sorrow. They are proof that we still know how to ache, how to feel for a small, fragile life. And that means this world still has hope. Have you ever saved a life? Maybe a dog, a cat, or a small bird struggling in the rain. Or maybe it was a human being, lost and in need of a hand. I want to hear that story in the comments below. Share it, so I, and everyone, can remember that kindness has never disappeared. And if this story has touched your heart, please consider subscribing. Not for me, but so that together we can keep seeing, keep saving, keep giving second chances to the eyes this world once forgot. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart.